Used to hold me, now I hold you. Used to tell me, now I tell you. Don't worry, we won't be apart. You were strong, now I'm stronger. Please hold on a little longer. Don't worry, we won't be apart. 'Cause we are one, rhythm of a beating heart. We are one, never be apart, never be apart. Oh, 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 never be apart. Give me love, and I love you. In my blood, pieces of you. Don't worry, we won't be apart. When you're gone, I'll remember in my heart, still together. Don't worry, we won't be apart. 'Cause we are one, rhythm of a beating heart. We are one, never be apart, never be apart. Oh, 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 never be apart. If you need to move on, and I leave the light on to help you find your way back home. While you are away, I'll be waiting. We are lonely, but we're not alone, not alone. Cause we are one, rhythm of a beating heart. We are one, never be apart, never be apart. Oh, 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 never be apart, never be apart, never be apart.
There's a big old hole that goes right through the sole of this old shoe, and the water on the ground ain't got no place else it's found. So it's only got one thing left to do. Just creep on in, creep on in. And once it has begun, it won't stop until it's done. Sneaking in. There's a silver moon, came a little too soon. Oh, for me to bear, it shines brightly on my bed, and the shadows overhead won't let me sleep as long as it's there. It just creep on in, creep on in. And once it has begun, it won't stop until it's done. Sneak it in. Won't stop until it's done. Sneak it in. There's a big old hole that goes right through my soul. Oh, that ain't nothing new. So as long as you're around, I got no place else you found. There's only one thing left for you to do. You just creep on in. Creep on in.
And you, my heart, relieve. Outrunning fast, trouble close behind. Your cries fell on deaf ears. I grew up in rags and buttered lights. Everything I own, I stole. I discard the life I could have had and raise my glass to woe. So close to the dead as I lay my head, this feeling inside turns up without warning, brings warmth to my bones. No sticks and no stones, and now my eyes, they have seen no wonder. My ears can hear just one tongue, but now I'm with you. You are with me. We are almost home.
So, ladies and gentlemen, today Amsterdam is Peace Operations Headquarters with the conference we've had on Resolution 1325 on women in conflict, the conference of European troop contributors, the panel on peacekeeping operation which has honored us with its visit, and of course the visit of DPKO. A warm welcome to this joint closing session of the International Conference on Security Council Resolution 1325 and the European Regional Conference in support of UN peace operations. A warm welcome also on our podium to, of course, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands, Mr. Bert Koenders, Hervé Latsous, the Undersecretary General for Peacekeeping Operations, and last but definitely not least, Hasina Safi, Director of the Afghan Women's Network, who will brief about the outcome of the 1325 conference. And on a video link, we have Phumzile Mlambo-Nguka, Executive Director of UN Women, to give her comments as well. So we've been talking today about the quantity and quality of peace operations, the quantity, of course, building up to further contributions during the General Assembly this fall, but also many quality issues to strengthen the efforts, the European commitment, the overall commitment to peacekeeping, including to women in conflict, protection of civilians, and integration. And in order to give an impression of what was discussed at the conference on 1325, I would like to ask Hasina Safi to take the floor.
Thank you very much, my friend. I think it's a great honor. I would like to thank all the 125 sisters and brothers who gathered as experts yesterday and today in order to provide very technical mechanisms and indicators for 1325. They provided me the opportunity to share with you the recommendations which we posted to the government of Netherlands. I would like to thank the government of Netherlands for the opportunity so that we share our ways forward. Be positive. So we had a two-day very intensive and very technical expert panels and working groups where we tried to have very specific recommendations in order to share with everyone how can we bring 1325 into practice. How can we bring 1325, how can we take it out from the capitals to the grassroots? We asked the grassroots and the capitals. We really connected them both to really see the result, how it would really work in the life of an ordinary woman who does not even know the number 1325. How would it work? So for that reason, I'm going to share with you the initial findings which will be used as inputs in the UN Global Study and UN Global Review, as well as for the development of next Dutch National Action Plan. On behalf of the whole group, I would like to once again thank all of you. So the recommendations which I'm going to post for you, they would be basically about under 3 topics. It will be on security sector, women and peace building. It will be on participation of women in post-conflict processes, and it will be on masculinities and the role of men in the women, peace and security agenda. The first recommendation about under the content of security sector, women and peace building is gender equality is a fundament of security. We should thus work on the basis of human security paradigm, including the perspectives of civilians, women. I again emphasize on women because 1325 talks about different roles of women and men. We should aim to integrate principles of 1325 in follow-up resolutions in all planning, policy and evaluation of security actors at all levels. This should include the individual level, for example, a job description and evaluations. Third, we should use the strength, knowledge, and local piecework of civil society and grassroots actors for improved security. Partnership between security actors and local civil society can contribute more to inclusive security. International actors can help bridge the gap between these local peace initiatives and the diplomatic and political level from different spheres of life. On participation of women in post-conflict processes, we should guarantee that women's voices are amplified and are part of all decision-making levels in peace processes. If it is a local level, if it is a village level, if it is a national level, regional level, or international level. It will only show its impact if we connect each of them. How a woman feels in a province, or how a woman feels in a grassroots, and how do we connect it to the 1325 Security Council resolution, the big buildings in New York. How can we really connect it, and how can we see the impact in the life of an ordinary woman? By putting a place and committing to an international 1325 standard of practice for the inclusion of women civil society, including predictable financing, or for women's work on women in peace and security. The most important thing is, if our pocket is empty, we cannot do anything. But if we have little money, but we are planned and strategized, we can really troubleshoot a lot of problems. It is really important. We should strengthen and reform political parties and systems so that they become well-functioning vehicles and provide a safe and inclusive environment for women so they can access and participate. Sometimes it happens that we provide those necessities which is never a priority for women. By this, we really mean that we should all the time try to facilitate an action, a program, a mechanism which will really help a woman based on the situation she is facing there. We should strengthen the reform, stress and importance of the role of the mediator in peacekeeping processes in the general absence of female and civil society voices. All mandates of mediators should clearly stipulate the need to focus on the role of women in civil society and include them in all phases of peace processes with clear defined indicators to measure and monitor. As I stated before, if we are strategized and well-planned, and if we think, for example, this is 2015, if we are thinking about our plan from 2015 to 2020, and from the beginning we are parallelly trying to monitor it, in relation to the delivery, in relation to the quality delivery, in relation to the monitoring of the work, we can really achieve practical indicators in the lives of women. On masculinities in the role of men and women in peace and security agenda, the first thing we would like to recommend is the discourse of masculinities provides a new framework for analyzing conflict, which will help us to understand core causes of violence and conflict. Civil society has the expertise and needs to take the lead on this, so please count on them. There is a need for capacity sharing on men and masculinities within governmental and international institutions, as well as international and national CSOs and donor organizations in order to develop the best practices. In order to do no harm, we have to build the capacity on active nonviolence methods, including positive examples of masculinities. It is important to develop a two-track approach for men and women to work in partnership, as well as providing space for women's empowerment. Sometimes it happens that people say that this area is an unsafe area because we cannot go to that area, so we cannot provide opportunities. It is never difficult because there are always local partners. You have to identify the real local partners, whereas with the real local partners, you can always access to those women who have never been accessed. Engage the local security sector, for example, through training. This training should include peaceful and non-violent means to address conflict. The international trainers in community should lead by examples and act as role models. We hope these recommendations will be a useful contribution to the Global Review on 1325, and that all governments, international organizations, and civil society attending these conferences seriously commit and make concrete steps to collectively make this happen, starting from today, starting from this moment, starting from this time. At the end, I would like to thank the Netherlands government again. Meanwhile, I would like to have one final recommendation to the Netherlands government and to all the international communities. Take out all the frameworks from the shelf and bring it into practice on the streets, in the villages, in the grassroots, in order to really try to support women become agents of change. Thank you very much.
Hasina Safi, thank you very much for this very powerful message on behalf of the conference that was held the past 1.5 days. I would now like to give the floor to Hervé Lassou, the Undersecretary General for Peacekeeping.
Mr. Minister, dear Bert, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great occasion, I think, that the government of the Kingdom of the Netherlands had chosen to have these two events coincide, because this year, 2015, the year of the 70th anniversary of the United Nations, is seeing several exercises that will have a major impact on the future of United Nations work in the field of peace and security. The review of the peace operations under the chairmanship of President Ramos Horta, the review on peace building, and the global review on Resolution 1325. All this serves to remind the essential part that women have to play, do play, in peace and security. And of course, it is our job to make sure that all these exercises converge and make it so that we can do an ever better job out of it. We do have no less than 7 resolutions of the Security Council on women, peace and security. And it stands to reason that our peacekeeping operations are uniquely positioned on the ground to ensure that women participate fully in all aspects of peacekeeping, peacemaking, peace building, as well as, of course, in their own protection from violations of their human rights, including conflict-related sexual violence. So there's a number of things, and I would like to deal more on these practical things that we are doing, because that is our vécu, however you say that in English, what we experience. We have established a team in the headquarters. We have, since last year, our first gender strategy, which is now implemented. We constantly develop new training materials on all these issues, materials that are put to particular use right now in the Central African Republic to the benefit of our troops on the ground. We have gender advisors in all field missions, and I have made an experiment last year that the gender advisor in MINUSTA in Haiti is working directly under the special representative of the Secretary General to give more added visibility and added authority also to all the decisions that need to be made in the mission. And I think it's going to work. It is working, and we're going to implement that in other missions as we go. We have women protection advisors in all the missions where we have a protection of civilian mandate. And of course, they monitor and report on conflict-related sexual violations, and they provide the necessary training to our peacekeepers. Right now, we have no less than 58 gender advisors and 32 women protection advisors in the field. So, a few examples. In many places, peacekeepers who are conducting short and long-range patrols have actually been trained in order to detect the early warning signals. They have been trained on the importance of gathering information, not only from men, but also from women in the local communities. And very often, wherever possible, our patrols include women because this facilitates the dialogue with the local women. In Darfur, we have supported the development of women's protection networks, which means that women themselves are involved in strengthening their own protection, and they can alert the mission and partners prior or during the breakout of violence and conflict. Sadly, not in every case, as we've seen in Eastern Darfur, in Tabit, only a few months ago, but I think this is something that we need to continue doing. In Liberia, over the years, we have supported security sector reform and contributed to the increase in the number of women in the Liberian National Police, which now has stood for some time already at 21% for the last 5 years, actually, for 25%, which is much above the average percentage in the polices in the world. In Mali, we have supported the development of a one-year action plan on the participation and representation of women in the transitional political and peace process. In DRC, colleagues are implementing strategies to mobilize and attract female ex-combatants so that they can benefit from the DDRR process, which is something that we have done in the past also in Liberia, in Timor-Leste, and in Sudan. Wherever we have elections taking place, of course, our staff work hard to support the effective participation of women at all levels. Our STAR-SGs, and of course, Minister Kounders has lived through that in Côte d'Ivoire and then in Mali. Our SRSGs have a lot of political leverage in this area, and they are in a good position to encourage governments to include women, more women, as many women as possible in political and peace processes. And I like to think that this does strengthen the conduit for advancing the agenda of women, peace and security. I'll stop there because examples are many. We don't succeed everywhere, but I think the commitment of our peacekeepers all over the missions, and you know we have 130,000 spread across 16 missions around the world. I think this is an engagement. It is being true to the values, to the ideals of the United Nations. We have to make it happen. We have to do a better job. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Hervé Latsou. Somebody who's been with us today in spirit, if not in person, has been the Executive Director of UN Women. She's with us now by video link. Phumzile Mlambo Nguka, can I ask you to respond to what you've heard on the 1325 conference, the recommendations that were mentioned? You have the floor. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you. And thank you very much for including me in these important proceedings. I want to greet the Minister, greet my colleague, Mr. Lusus, and also greet our excellent representative, Safi, for the report that she has given. I thank the government of the Netherlands for the work that you have done. You are one of the early adopters of 1325 in a programmatic level, and we hope that the events of the 2 days give you yet another strength to be a leader again. We've highly appreciated the collaboration that we've had with you as UN Women. Recently, we did excellent work together with the women of Syria, which keeps on growing, because right now, as we speak, we are able to work with women from across the divide. Hopefully, the day after will come for them soon. So where we could put this expertise and collaboration that we've had with you and with them into practice. I also want to support what Mr. Lusus has highlighted as some of the examples of progress that we have seen. We have enough examples and data to show what works, what doesn't work, and therefore we're in a much better situation to improve and to take much bigger and bolder steps going forward. So specifically to the presentation from the reports, I'd like to agree on the issue of equality being fundamental to security and vice versa. Security is important in order for us to have gender equality. In a recent review of 164 countries on what has happened 20 years after Beijing, the countries that least progressed in the last 20 years are led by the countries where there has been conflict, clearly showing that there's a correlation between conflict and compromise of gender equality and women's empowerment. And this means, therefore, we have to be much more targeted in addressing gender equality. In addition, women contribute to the quality of security that countries can enjoy. So the improvement and the respect of rights of women has a direct link to the kind of peace that countries are able to enjoy. This is why we strongly support, as UN Women, the call for 50-50 and gender parity and representation of women in all decision-making bodies, in all peacemaking efforts. We have seen, not just in the peacemaking arena, but in the economics and in politics, that gender parity continues to slow down the progress that countries can make. Where women are represented effectively, we also see that progress is much bolder, is much stronger. So the same is true in this area of peacemaking. I also want to agree with the issue of integration of 1325 in policy, in planning, in all aspects, as well as collaboration with civil society and local stakeholders. I do want to single out, for instance, Mr. Patrick Comayet for the excellent work that he does, because that also demonstrates the importance of integrating the values of gender equality within the security institutions themselves, because through that, the buy-in is stronger. So whether we are integrating at a local level, within the institutions that are responsible for security, but also at a grassroots and local level, it is important mainstream, because peace cannot be compartmentalized and be left only in the hands of a limited number of people who can provide expertise. I want to also agree and support what the report says about strengthening partnerships and working together. In particular, raise the importance of investing in these partnerships so that they are able to be effective. Now and again, and time and again, as UN Women, we observe on the ground the limited resources that women have, that civil society has, and that countries have, and therefore the inability for them to be as effective as they can be. So we want to emphasize and to appreciate the point that is being made by partnership, but also emphasize the importance of investment. The fact that we have not been able to break through above the 15% set aside that is supposed to be invested for support of women is clearly a concern. It means that we deny women a possibility for economic empowerment as part of reparations. They are denied psychosocial support as part of the healing process, but also it means that we're unable to attract the level and the quality of personnel that is needed to do the work. So if we're able to embrace the high impact approach, we should be able to use the resources available much better. I want to also appreciate the point that was being made about addressing and including masculinity discourse as part of understanding how we deal with issues of peace. We at UN Women are working much stronger and much closer with men and boys. This is the work that is enabling us to talk to men and boys even at a very young age in order for us to institutionalize the do no harm principle, which must depend on men and boys taking action. And this is also one of the areas where the role of Mr. Patrick Cammaert has been very, very instructive for us. We see that the nature of the conflict is changing. For the West, women are in the eye of the storm, whether you are talking about Syria, Pakistan, northern Nigeria. And therefore, we also have to change the way in which we are responding. I think those of us who work on the ground, ourselves, DPKO, and many of you are in the room, those who have come from different countries, it does mean that we have to integrate the protection of women at every level, in the health facilities, in the homes, in the schools, because we see that girls are targeted at schools, in their homes, at their workplace, and of course, civilians in general and unarmed people are also not safe in the manner in which the conflict is evolving and extremism. I would also want to highlight the importance of changing the narrative much stronger so that we talk about women as game changers, as leaders, and not as victims, not as vulnerable people, but as people who are the missing link for the peace process to be even stronger than it is, as important supporters of the excellent work that is already being made by the different stakeholders. Constant reminders to society that women are not a problem, women are the solution, and without integrating women effectively, we do not get the results that we want. And in conclusion, I would also like to thank you again for this support and to say that UN Women is ready to take the work and the outcomes of these reviews to the next step, because we have invested heavily with your support, many of you, in different countries, and we would like to take those investments to all the corners where the conflict is intense so that we're able to take action as a result of these reviews and make sure that what is recommended is implemented intensively and is linked with what is happening at a global level and capital level, but that most importantly, our strength is what we're able to do at local level. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Phumzile, for your important message. Women are the solution, not the problem. I think a lot of what you said rings true to the people here in the room. Now, what could be more appropriate than to have this joint conference be closed by a former peacekeeper? So I'd like to give the floor to the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands, Mr. Bert Koenders.
Thank you well, Koen. President Horta, Under Secretary General Latsous, Madam Executive Director, dear friends, colleagues, so many that are around here this afternoon that I recognize, that I see on different, sitting on different seats. I see my old colleague David Grassley here from MINUSMA, so many others. Hilde Johnson, obviously, I can't name them all, but I'm extremely pleased that you all came to the Netherlands at a very important moment. I was just thinking when I was listening to you, Madam Executive Director, believe it or not, on somebody who spoke 30 years ago, Willy Brandt, German Chancellor. Peace is not everything, but everything is nothing without peace. That was 30 years ago. And we're living in a particularly risky and dangerous world. And I'm glad that we have such a large turnout for the conferences yesterday and today on peace operations and on the role of women in conflict and peace. I think this is really, and you mentioned it, Hervé, before, an excellent opportunity to fine-tune synergy between these two themes that are best tackled together. Because it is a shared responsibility for men and women, for defense personnel and diplomats, for governments and NGOs. So I'm happy to see such a wide variety of partners here today, government partners, civil society groups, and the United Nations. And not only a wide variety, but also many high-level participants, among them former special representatives. And I salute the women, and I had an opportunity to discuss with them on Syria, on Iraq, on Afghanistan, the Democratic Republic of Congo, South Sudan, Burundi, and Colombia, to name just a few places. You activists that I spoke with this afternoon face the bitter reality of conflict in your countries every day. And I'm here to listen to your ideas today and tomorrow on how my country can better support your work. I'd also like to highlight the presence of our valued United Nations partners, the Department of Peacekeeping Operations and United Nations Women, among others. And I acknowledge your leadership, and I hope we can help you in providing solutions to current challenges. I'd like to underline the importance of today's topic. We find ourselves confronted with hybrid warfare and complex conflicts. We witness in today's world a combination of proxy warfare, marginalization of groups, ethnicities, women in society, use of extreme violence and extreme ideologies as a poisonous element. And this puts the United Nations for new challenges, us all for new challenges, because it breaks the trend of reduction of conflict that we saw during the last decade. In a time of shifting power centers in the world and of malfunctioning of the United Nations Security Council in case of mass atrocities, like in Syria. Altogether, this amounts to enormous challenges for United Nations peacekeeping and for the effective implementation of Resolution 1325. Would the United Nations, for instance, and I'm talking about the twin topics that we're discussing today, ready for peace support operations if, admittedly, unlikely at this specific moment in time, the Mistura would succeed in a top-down armistice with bottom-up approach? And what would be the role of the United Nations in a country like Libya, where ISIS is on the rise and the political negotiations under the great leadership of Bernardo Leon are underway, but we don't know yet if they will succeed? And on the other topic, does the United Nations have the answer to the misogyny that we've seen for some years now, rape as a weapon of war, hatred of women as an intricate, crucial element of extremist ideologies? And we heard the stories this afternoon of colleagues and activists in Syria and in Iraq. And most importantly for the discussion at this conference, do all countries want to chip in? Or do they leave the troop contributions, intelligence, logistics, training of United Nations peacekeeping operations to a few countries in the world? I think this is an excellent opportunity to look for solutions. The United Nations is the unique organization where the world meets, the only place where legitimacy can grow and the conversation can take place. The essence is to give the political, financial, and military capital to the United Nations so that it can effectively act. Peacekeeping, as we all know, is now one of the most cost-effective means to provide our citizens with security. The total cost of all peacekeeping operations is comparable to the expenditures of the Dutch defense budget. That's the reality. It's often an untold success story. That doesn't mean that all peacekeeping operations are a success. They are not. But there are many peacekeeping operations that are a success. And we are discussing here today, in the context of these two issues, how we can assist the improvement and the reform of United Nations peacekeeping operations. And 2015 will be an important year for peacekeeping and for the role of women in conflict and peace. The two conferences held here aim to keep up the momentum in at least two ways. First, we want to contribute to the debate on peace operations now that two major UN reviews are being conducted. And I applaud the work of President Horta and his team. Second, the conference seeks to enhance the commitment of European countries to United Nations peace operations in close cooperation with the UN Department of Peacekeeping Operations. I think it's an important element to stimulate during these days and in the future. Let me start first with the goal 2015, a year in which the world is working to adapt peacekeeping practices to the demands of our time. 15 years ago, two pioneering documents changed the nature of peacekeeping: the Brahimi Report and the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325 on women, peace and security. This year, the implementation of both will be reviewed to assess what has been achieved so far, and that's a lot, and to consider new challenges facing peacekeeping operations. The Netherlands organized these conferences to generate useful input for the reviews building on the real experience of the many participating parties, both member states and experts. And allow me to begin my contribution today with a political assessment of the challenges we face in the field of peacekeeping. The political situation we find ourselves in today in Europe and the countries around its borders is turbulent, to say the least. In 2014, conflict came closer than we thought possible after the Cold War. What we once regarded as faraway problems, and I'm talking now only about my own country, are now impacting on our societies. The people of the Netherlands experienced this acutely and tragically last summer with the crash of flight MH17. Hybrid warfare is the new normal, it seems. Today, distinctions of the past have become even more blurred. Conventional warfare, irregular warfare, and cyber warfare have blended into one. Asymmetrical warfare is a threat to peace operations, and regular military forces are being confronted with guerrilla groups, terrorists, and common criminals who work in unity or sometimes are the same people. In such an environment, it's difficult sometimes to tell friend from foe, ally from enemy. Transnational crime, cybercrime, and terrorism blur the distinction between internal and external security and between war and peace. Often there is no peace to keep. Troops face hybrid warfare in the field, where civilians are not just bystanders, but targets. This is a great concern, even more so, because a recent report by the United Nations OIOS concluded there is a persistent pattern of peacekeeping operations not intervening with force when civilians are under attack. When people are not protected and have no choice but to flee their homes, the impact on their lives and on the stability of their country or region is profound and long-lasting. Exclusion, as we all know, is a major driving force of many of today's wars. This is indeed true for Iraq, for Mali, for the Central African Republic, and many other conflicts in the world. And as was recently written, stabilizing the world's most vulnerable areas should be a major global foreign policy imperative, and not just a moral one, given that these regions often serve as haven for terrorists and transnational criminals. We need, therefore, as we say it for many years, an integrated approach to conflict if we want to regain a sense of security. It is good to see that the Peace Operations Review is examining the whole spectrum of peacekeeping operation and special political missions, and that peace building and prevention are key elements of your work and your mandate. The deployment of a mission depends on the specific context in which the mission has to operate. Prevention, early recovery, peacekeeping, peace building, state building, we all have these terms in our vocabulary, are all part of a continuum that requires strong cooperation between DPKO, DFS, DPA, UNDP. Funding streams are not keeping pace with the growing awareness that mediation, early warning, and peace building are essential to preventing renewed conflict. So to reiterate what I said last month during my visit to United Nations headquarters, it is of the essence that one UN becomes a reality, also beyond the development field. The challenges I just mentioned require a thorough rethinking of peacekeeping operations. And I would like to applaud the work done by the Under-Secretary General Latsous and his team to constantly try to find a way in this complex world to adapt peacekeeping operations. And now we have a review that can make us think if we are on the right track. And I'm glad to see Ramos Horta here, with his experience as a former head of the United Nations Integrating Peacebuilding Office in Guinea-Bissau, but also as the former president of Timor-Leste, when he has experienced the other side, to be, I wouldn't say the victim of the UN, but you were the object of the UN. And if you see it from the other side, it is quite helpful, isn't it? You see the strengths and the weaknesses. And building on what has been said here over the last 2 days and on my experience as the former special representative and my country's experience in MINUSMA, I would suggest maybe a few points to consider. First, all missions are political. No missions are purely military or civilian. Fostering political solution is key. It sounds like a cliché, but it's often forgotten. Peacekeeping operations should first and foremost support a political solution. Second, leadership and proper doctrine in protecting civilians is key to the success of the mission and its overall credibility. A proper doctrine for protection of civilians is key, as expectations are high and means limited, and the doctrine has to effectively incorporate support for political process. And that's not always easy. Sometimes you have to choose. And mission leadership are confronted with those choices. And I'm sure tomorrow in some of the seminars that we're organizing on the use of force, we will deepen this question. In any case, mission leadership should take full responsibility and be accountable for how well it protects civilians within those limits. And of course, peacekeepers need to get out of their compounds, but they have to get the means to do so. Third, we have to be serious about our commitment to ensuring the participation of women in peacekeeping, peace negotiations, and peace building. I'll come back to that point in a second, because I applaud what has happened to 1325. But I agree with many of the issues that were mentioned. There's a lot of seminars, a lot of meetings, a lot of roundtables, and a lot of experts. We have to see if it really made a difference for the women in the field. Fourth, missions need a mandate fit for purpose, a cliché but true, and a doctrine for the use of force. In order for peacekeeping operations to have sufficient maneuverability, the Security Council must provide them with appropriate and feasible mandates. And I think Brahima has already mentioned 15 years ago some suggestions around that. And special representatives, I know it myself, they must not hold back in making use of them. They are responsible. They should act proactively, wisely, and decisively. There needs to be a clear command and control procedure, which is not always there. It's sometimes difficult. Not all militaries want to be in that chain of command. And the mandate must be implemented fully, including the use of force when necessary. Fifth, missions need adequate staffing, training, and preparation. Both military and civilian missions often struggle to find sufficient staff and logistics in time. This is unacceptable and undermines the credibility of the mission. The credibility of a mission is proven in the first 4 months. That's the moment that you show credibility to all the actors who want to destroy a peace process. Missions and country teams need to work together in an integrated and coordinated manner in all phases of the process, from early recovery to peace building. But missions also need to base their decisions on all available intelligence and information, and we must improve the flow of information. I'm very happy that with the innovation in peacekeeping, we do now have an ASIFU unit in Mali. A few years ago, you couldn't talk about intelligence in the United Nations. Now we have a strong part, at least, of the mission in Mali, which means that we have eyes and ears, and those eyes and ears are important. When we talk about 1325, and we talk about the protection of women, how can you protect women that go to a marketplace or might be the victim of an ideology, of war as an instrument, of rape as an instrument of warfare, without eyes and ears? You can't be everywhere. You need the means to see and to show where you are. And six, we need strong leadership. I say it again, to make One UN a reality. We must be able to monitor closely what we do in the areas of a still underfinanced area of any peace-building strategy, that's early recovery. Humanitarian, underfinanced because of all the crises in the world. Early recovery, often not really the money and the means and the bureaucratic procedures to act proactively. I want to applaud David Gresley, who is here, who did that work in northern Mali with a lot of constraints. But you know, if a strategy is really integrated, it means that in the northern part, in this case of Mali, you have to be there in time. You can't wait. And it's beyond the humanitarian support. The same goes, obviously, for all the other aspects of a mandate. A crucial condition for ensuring the protection of all civilians in conflict zones and for achieving lasting impact, obviously, is then sufficient capacity. That's why the second goal of today's conference, the European Regional Conference on Peace Operations, was to get a better sense of what capabilities are required for current and future peace operations. And it's clear that we, also here in Europe, must do more and do better. United Nations deployments depend on what member states are willing to be able to offer. There is, for instance, a huge lack of enablers in peacekeeping operations. This is a critical shortcoming. And the countries in this region could make a significant difference in correcting this. For instance, my own country's contribution of Apache helicopters and transport helicopters to MINUSMA is of great value to the mission. Other partners strengthen missions by providing strategic air support, absolutely crucial, but still more is needed. One of the aims of today's event was to get an overview of the level of interest among European states in increasing their contributions to those operations. And I think Europe is getting back into peacekeeping. I think the Undersecretary tomorrow has a meeting with the Ministers of Defense in Europe. Very important. Because we have to act a little bit where our mouth is, put our money where our mouth is. And it means also a new adaptation, because many countries in Europe in the last couple of years were not participating in UN peacekeeping, because they're used to EU and especially NATO operations. So you have to get used to working in an organization not of 28, but of 193 countries. That requires a little bit adaptation from both sides, and I think the importance of this meeting here today is to ensure that it is happening. And with all these crises going on simultaneously, we have to rethink our national defense budgets. In Europe, we are increasingly realizing that 0.5% of GDP is simply not enough. I'd like to emphasize again how cost-effective peacekeeping operations are, only when they are part of an integrated approach, as we call a 3D approach. I have a whole story here about our own commitment. I'm not going to read that, because I never liked to do speeches and then say the Netherlands is doing this and this and that. We are doing a lot, and we would like to continue to contribute to peacekeeping operations in a very effective way, including in providing high-end capabilities. It is important that member states are reliable partners to the United Nations. I think it's important to mention, except for material and for finance, is the issue of training and facilitate the pre-deployment training of staff of other countries. How can it be possible that I had to support our very courageous troops in the northern part of Mali, and they were not sufficiently trained against explosives? There are ample opportunities to support these troops in this crucial effort, which will be only on the rise in asymmetric warfare. Through our funds and through the training provided by our instructors, troops from Burundi, Uganda, Burkina Faso, and Benin, and other countries are taught not only military skills, but also some of these issues that deal with gender and human rights. I leave all the Dutch contributions because I don't like these kind of speeches. Let me go back to one point, the crucial point of integration with 1325. Let me say something about that. When discussing the issue of peace building, the question inevitably arises, who are we building peace for? Who are we building it with? Many women present here today know that all too often the answers to these questions are not always self-evident. Peace can be a selfish business, the business of the people who happen to be sitting around the negotiating table. Paramount for sustainable peace is the inclusion of women in all aspects of peacemaking. Now, it is obvious to maybe all of us that women are a powerful force of peace. They build bridges between unlikely groups. They have mediation skills that are too often disregarded. They enjoy access to groups and actors that men cannot always easily engage with. So involving women in peacemaking makes peace not only more equitable and balanced in itself, it is a much more effective way to achieve peace in the first place. But not everything is set by that. We should less focus on annual rituals in conference rooms and focus more on the activists and the experts in the field. Yes, we have to monitor. Yes, we need gender experts, and we are supplying them, and I know others do this as well. It was key in the mission in Mali and Ivory Coast to do so. If you don't have the personnel, people who look at it, who monitor, who know the country, forget about 1325. But the idea of 1325 was not that women become the object of conferences and interesting seminars. We are really talking about engaging of men and women. And sometimes it's complicated. I remember going to the peace negotiations in Alger. There was, I don't know how many seminars, David, you know it, maybe on 1325. There was no woman around the table. We had done our seminars. There was a gender expert, everybody was there. I was looking at the table, I didn't see one. Now, I have to say one thing on Mali, it's slightly different, so every situation is specific. You talk to the Tuaregs, especially around Kidal and other places, it's actually the women who carry the weight in decision-making. So here it was slightly different because the men could go to Alger to negotiate, but they had to get back to get their approval. So the women were, in fact, around the table, and it made it extremely complicated. But obviously that is not always the case. But you always have to look specifically at the situation you talk about that. And I am glad that at least we have here a mixed group, because sometimes the male-to-female ratio in the panels are related to the conflict itself. I think here again we have to be very specific. Put our actions and really look to the effects of what we are doing. If we do not protect women that want to go to a market, it's not only bad for the women, it's bad for the economy. If we see that the increase of hatred against women is part of those who fight asymmetric warfare, we have an additional problem that we really don't know how to tackle yet. So 1325 is in that sense something that has to be modernized, has to be improved upon, and therefore we have to expand our support for gender expertise in civilian and other areas. There are many examples of this, but let me just mention one. That is the great project we have at the moment, and I spoke this afternoon to one of the Syrian women from Damascus. There is a marvelous project at the moment in Syria to try to reach out to the women in Syria. If we talk about a human disaster, you have one, where there is a certain powerlessness at the moment of the international community to act, where there is a proxy warfare, where the United Nations Security Council cannot go to an agreement, where the people in Aleppo and Idlib are still sitting there every day under the missiles. Now, one thing we know, there is no military solution to this. We know a military element can be important, but there's no military solution to this. But at the meantime, we cannot be silent, and therefore I think every effort, humanitarian political if you wish, but not party political, in the sense of reaching out to those women who live in Syria is crucial, and therefore my country is supporting with some colleagues from other countries a very, I would say, almost revolutionary project on trying to reach these women and also make sure that they have a voice. We can also assist troop contributing countries like India by financing the training by UN Women. I know you are doing that as part of your efforts, as part of pre-deployment training. The same goes that many countries are following India's example. There is a biannual training course that we run together with Spain, where civilians, military personnel, and police officers are taught to implement gender perspective in multilateral operations. What does it mean? Simply that if you have a Congolese police officer in Bouaké in the western part of the Ivory Coast, women dare to talk to her and not necessarily to all the other peacekeepers. Over the past 4 years, more than 500 people from over 40 countries and various international organizations have participated in these courses. We are working now together with the Spanish government, and we signed today an agreement on continuing this training to build military and civilian gender capacity in peace operations. Last example that I mentioned, and I just want to say again about the Syrian women, it is important that we help now the modest, moderate opposition in Syria. In fact, women from all walks of life to unite around a common vision of the future of their country. That's also part, in my view, of 1325. There are efforts in Iraq. All these women are here today. I'm not going into details, but when I read the different programs that can be supported, they can be a catalyst for change. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, this year we will come together and get the good practices together, I hope. There's a large responsibility for all of us to think through what that review could be and to make sure that that review doesn't go to another drawer. There's so many drawers in the world you can always put in a report in. I know with Ramos Horta that will not happen. So I'm very happy that he's leading these efforts. We should seize this opportunity to capitalize on what we've learned and make it an integral part of the way we operate. This is not only an opportunity, it's a responsibility for us all. And finally, I would like to wish you all very much success in these efforts. We have a great obligation. My country will continue to do so. I hope also in 2017 and 18 as part of the UN Security Council. We are pleading, obviously, for your support. The Kingdom of the Netherlands, your partner for peace, justice and development. I need to applaud a little for us, isn't it, at the end of the day. But obviously, that's not the most important. The most important is that we together improve in the effectiveness of peacekeeping operation, the protection of civilians, and to work together in an integrated way with the colleagues who have fought in the last 15 years for Resolution 1325. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Koenders. Just two more points to make. First of all, I would like to ask you to give a round of applause for all the colleagues from the Netherlands Ministry of Defence and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs who worked on these conferences today. Second, drinks are served right at the other end of this room. And for those who participate in the European TCC conference, transportation to the dinner venue is available within about 25 minutes. Thank you very much.
Will he still remember me? Will he still love me even when he's free? Or will he go back to the